Today, we're diving into a story that's about 2,000 years old, but feels like it was written for right now. It's got a storm, what looks like a ghost, and an impossible walk on water. But if you look closer, it's actually a powerful roadmap for how to get through life when things get chaotic.
I mean, let's be real for a second. It feels like we're living in an age of anxiety, right? We're constantly getting hit with uncertainty, and it can really feel like we're stuck in a tiny boat just getting tossed around on a stormy sea. So in the middle of all that chaos, what does it even mean to have faith? Is it just, wishful thinking? Or is there something deeper going on?
Well, a sermon that really breaks down this story of Jesus walking on water suggests it's not just some old tale. It's a framework. It's like a guide for how to act when you feel completely lost in the storm. Okay, let's get into it. To really get this story, we have to set the scene. And not just on some ancient sea, but right here, right now. The sermon makes this compelling point that we are living in our own time of transition, a moment of massive instability that looks a whole lot like the storm the disciples were facing.
And this isn't some vague, abstract idea. The sermon points to some very specific, very real waves crashing against our boat. You've got the climate crisis, the mind-bending speed of the AI revolution, deep social inequality, and this kind of growing sense of spiritual emptiness. This is the storm we're in. And that's pretty much exactly where the Bible story kicks off. Picture it. The disciples are alone in a boat, miles from shore, in the pitch black of night, rowing straight into a headwinds that's making it impossible to get anywhere. The sermon says this is the perfect metaphor for our own feeling of crisis. Feeling adrift, totally exhausted and powerless against everything happening around us. So, you're in the storm, you're feeling hopeless, and then something appears out there on the water. But your first reaction? It's not relief, it's pure terror. And that moment, that reaction of fear, reveals the next crucial piece of the puzzle.
The disciples see a figure walking towards them on the water, and what's the first thing they shout? It's a ghost. Their immediate gut reaction is that this impossible thing has to be a threat. Their own fear basically projects this terrifying identity onto the one thing that could actually save them.
And here's where the sermon offers this really powerful idea. Hope, or the divine, or whatever you want to call a path forward, often shows up in a totally unfamiliar way. It doesn't fit into our neat little boxes. It looks like a ghost because it completely shatters our understanding of what's real. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, faith begins when you can see past that scary, unfamiliar surface to the hope that's hiding underneath.
And right into that terror, Jesus speaks. Just 3 simple phrases. He tells them to take courage, which calms their fear. He corrects their mistake, it is I. And he commands their anxiety to stand down. Don't be afraid. But that little phrase in the middle, it is I. Well, it holds a much, much deeper meaning.
The Greek phrase here is ego eimi. Now, on the surface, it just means it's me. But theologically, whoa, this is a thunderclap. The sermon connects this directly to that huge moment in the Old Testament. You know the one when God reveals his name to Moses as, I am who I am? This is a declaration of ultimate being, of existence itself speaking right into their chaos. So this isn't just your friend waving and saying, hey, it's me. No. This is the very foundation of reality showing up and saying, I am here.
So after hearing this incredible declaration of I am, one of the disciples, Peter, does something incredibly bold. He makes a request that completely shifts the story from something you just watch to a challenge you have to answer.
Peter basically shouts, hey, if that's really you, then call me out there on the water with you. And in that one moment, he's facing a choice that the sermon says we all face. You've got the boat, which is safety, logic, what you know, the system. And then you have the water, which is all risk, faith, the complete unknown, a direct challenge to that system. So what do you do? Do you stay where it's safe, or do you step out? Now, to really get a handle on this choice, the sermon brings in an idea from the theologian Paul Tillich, that faith isn't about being certain about everything. It's the courage to be. It's the courage to exist, to act, to move forward, even when you're facing anxiety and doubt and meaninglessness.
Faith, from this point of view, is a verb. It's something you do. It's an act of courage. And this is where the theory gets real. Jesus says one simple word, come. And Peter, just filled with this courage to be, gets out of the boat. He defies all logic. He pushes past his fear. And for a second, he does the impossible. He actually walks on the water. He becomes the living, breathing example of faith as an action.
But the story doesn't stop there with him being a hero. And honestly, what happens next is maybe the most important part of the whole thing. Because Peter's courage, it fades. He fails. But the sermon reframes this failure not as an ending, but as something absolutely essential to faith itself.
Let's just walk through this sequence. First, he steps out, his eyes locked on Jesus, and it works. But then he looks down. He sees the storm again, the reality of his situation, and bam, fear just floods in. He starts to sink. And right here, this is the critical moment. He doesn't just sink in silence. He cries out for help. And the text is so specific here. It says Jesus immediately reaches out and catches him. The rescue isn't delayed. It's instant. So as Jesus is holding him up, he asks this question. Now, the sermon insists this isn't him being angry. It's not a scolding. It's a compassionate, almost kind of sad question. It's a gentle nudge like, man, after everything you just did, after what you just experienced, why'd you let doubt get the best of you? It's a reminder of the power he had just seconds before. And this right here is the story's ultimate mic drop on what faith really is. See, it's not about being some perfect, unsinkable hero. Not at all. The sermon argues that real, true faith, it actually shows up in the moment you fail. It's about having the guts to try, the humility to admit when you're sinking, and the trust to cry out for help. That desperate plea, Lord, save me, that's not his biggest failure. The sermon says that is the absolute pinnacle of Peter's faith in this story.
So what happens after the failure, after the rescue? This is the part where the whole experience just transforms reality itself for the disciples.
The sermon wraps up with this beautiful, powerful metaphor. When Jesus and Peter get back in the boat, the storm just stops. By stepping out with faith, even a faith that stumbled, the world literally changed. The very thing that was the most terrifying, that deep, chaotic sea, it became as firm as solid rock.
And this brings us to the final amazing takeaway. When we answer that call to come, when we actually dare to step out of our comfortable little boats and face the chaos of our lives with courage, the source of our biggest fear can be completely transformed. That turbulent water of climate change, of new technology, of a personal crisis, it can become the very ground we learn to walk on. And so that leaves all of us with a final, pretty provocative question. This ancient story, it's not really just about Peter, is it? It's about us. So what's the comfortable boat in your life? Is it a job, a relationship, a mindset you're stuck in, a fear? And where, in the middle of your own personal storm, might you be hearing that quiet, challenging little call to